right, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. Are you looking for a beach read this summer? May I suggest your big wireless bill? It's got suspense, mystery, a slightly flat emotional arc, and a shocking twist where you realize you've been overpaying the entire time. Fortunately, though, Mint's story is better. Every plan, $15 a month, even unlimited. That's it. Happy ending, zero tears. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
Sleep Number's new collections are designed to adapt to the changing nature of your life and your sleep needs. Whether it's the personalized comfort of the new Comfort Mode mattress, the targeted pressure relief of the Comfort Next mattress, or the Climate Collection that actively cools or warms to help you fall asleep and stay asleep.
And now, get early access to our biggest sale of the year. Save 25% on the new Comfort Next Luxe for a limited time. Only at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com.
And away we go, episode 1388 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Friday, August 14th, 2026. It is a game day in the Washington, D.C. area. We have the Washington Commanders versus the Miami Dolphins at Northwest Stadium on Friday night at 7 in Week 1 of the NFL's 2026 preseason. Will Washington starters / key players play? We don't know. Will anything that happens in this game be telling regarding what will happen with our team in its 2026 regular season? We don't know. But we do know that we have the NFL team of D.C. in action on Friday night, although, yes, in a preseason game. But hello and welcome to this Friday installment of the Al Galdi podcast. Happy Friday. We had 2026 Washington Commanders training camp on Thursday, had no full practice and no media availability, just a walkthrough and meetings. And so we, on this installment of the podcast, have a terrific guest. Next segment, a deep dive on Washington's offensive line with one of the best people in the D.C. area regarding discussion of Washington's offensive line, Mitch Tischler of Monumental Sports Network, co-host of the Beltway Football Podcast with J.P. Finley. We will have an in-depth conversation about the state of the offensive line off the recent injuries and off the line not looking so great in the joint practice with the visiting Dolphins this past Wednesday, including the significance of the loss of left tackle Laremy Tunsil to a torn triceps, why Mitch very much endorses Washington going with Brandon Coleman as the starting left tackle in place of Tunsil, the extent to which Washington is committed to Coleman as the starting left tackle, why it was best for Washington to keep Josh Conerly Jr. at right tackle, the concerning situation at center, the encouraging work of right guard Samuel Cosmi in training camp, what kind of a training camp quarterback Jayden Daniels is having, why Mitch is a big fan of the offense of new offensive coordinator David Blough, and more. How worried should we be about Washington's offensive line? Mitch Tischler, next segment. And also on the show, I'll talk Washington Nationals. The Nats, they avoided a 3-game sweep, a 7-0 win over the Chicago Cubs at Nationals Park on Thursday, in a game in which starting pitcher Cade Cavalli flirted with a perfect game and then a no-hitter. He was outstanding. 8 scoreless innings, 10 strikeouts versus 2 walks. He gave up just 1 hit, which was a single. Before we get to feedback, this Jayden Daniels LSU story. I debated whether to do a whole segment on this or just address the story in the opening segment of the show. I'm doing the latter because, quite frankly, I find this story to be more annoying than anything else, and I'm not super pumped about doing 15 minutes on this. So the story is this. ESPN college football insider Mark Schlabach, he late night on Wednesday night reported that an attorney representing Daniels has informed LSU that it can no longer use his name, image, and likeness, and that the reason for this, per a statement from Daniels' spokesperson to ESPN, is that LSU is allowing sophomore cornerback DJ Pickett to wear the number 5 jersey that Daniels wore over his 2 seasons playing for LSU, 2022 and 2023, and Daniels for the 2023 season won the Heisman Trophy. DJ Pickett, in case you don't know, a very good cornerback. And what stood out as much as anything from this report from Mark Schlabach was the statement from Daniels' spokesperson to ESPN, quote, "The Daniels family is deeply disappointed and feels profoundly disrespected by LSU's decision to give Jayden's number to another player. Jayden and his family had every reason to believe that his number would remain a meaningful part of his LSU legacy and would be honored and protected in recognition of his extraordinary contributions to the university, end quote. Also part of the dynamic here is the change in terms of LSU head coach. LSU's previous head coach, Brian Kelly, did not allow DJ Pickett to wear the number 5 jersey because Daniels did not want another LSU player to wear that jersey. But LSU this past October 26th fired Kelly, and this past November 30th hired Lane Kiffin as head coach. And if you know Lane Kiffin, you know that he's a good coach, but that he is the ultimate mercenary. And so he has no problem letting a big-time player like DJ Pickett wear the number 5 jersey. There's also this. Matt Moscona, publisher of LouisianaSports.net, he on Thursday morning had this in a report, quote, Daniels camp also requested LSU return its copy of the Heisman Trophy Daniels won in 2023, sources confirmed. LSU has no intention of doing so and is undecided to what degree it will comply with the cease and desist, noting it is not a legally binding document. LSU coach Lane Kiffin has also spoken with Daniels directly, sources confirmed, end quote. Kiffin actually did a press conference on Thursday morning. The presser began with this back and forth, which involves Cincinnati Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow having worn the number 9 during his 2 seasons at LSU, 2018 and 2019, and he, for the 2019 season, won the Heisman Trophy. Here you go.
Just want to give you the opportunity to comment on the Jayden Daniels situation.
I'd be disappointed if that wasn't the first question. I commented a week ago on that. And so that's the comment that I had, and we're moving forward.
I guess just to ask one more question, just to understand numbers. If someone were to ask for number 9, would that be on the table for you? How would you handle that situation when a player asks for that?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into that. There's a lot to numbers and whether they're retired, whether they're not, and different versions. And so I don't have an answer.
All right. And then Jayden Daniels on Thursday afternoon on Instagram put out a statement. Yes, the rare social media statement from Jayden Daniels. Quote, I have been locked in on training camp, and that's been my number one focus. I have a lot of gratitude for my time at LSU, and I'm proud of what my teammates and I accomplished there. Obviously, there are issues to be worked out between my team and LSU, and my hope is that it will get done privately. My sole personal focus is on Commanders football. I realize the business of football is unique, and I trust this can all be resolved, end quote. So here's my bottom line take on this story. It is bizarre, random, tedious, out of character for Jayden Daniels. Not what you want to read as a fan, but it will have zero impact on how Daniels or Washington does in its 2026 season. This is not a story relevant to the on-the-field product of the Washington Commanders. Now, I said that this story is out of character for Jayden Daniels. It is. This story is not a great look for Jayden Daniels. That statement from Daniels' spokesperson is way too dramatic. Quote, the Daniels family is deeply disappointed and feels profoundly disrespected by LSU's decision to give Jayden's number to another player, end quote. I mean, calm down, all right? Daniels does not own the number 5 for LSU. I can get him wanting LSU to retire the number 5, although, him feeling so strongly about that would seem a little egotistical, but whatever. But if LSU doesn't want to retire the number 5, that is the prerogative of LSU. And the sending of a letter telling LSU to stop using Daniels' name, image, and likeness seems petty and seems unenforceable. Now, we do not know the specifics of the NIL contract that Jayden Daniels signed with LSU when he transferred from Arizona State to LSU in March 2022. So maybe he has contractual backing for his cause via that contract. We don't know. Although, man, I'd be surprised if his NIL contract was such that it gave him control of his name, image, and likeness beyond his time at LSU. There's also this. Jayden Daniels acting in this manner, that is not the Jayden Daniels who we know, right? I mean, I really wonder if this is a situation in which he has not had much actual involvement and/or has gotten some overly aggressive / bad advice. We know that his mom, Regina Jackson, is his business manager and agent. What's her take on all of this? Where does she fit in with all of this? Because this whole ordeal just is in no way congruent with the Jayden Daniels who we know. I mean, I know that we don't always know everything about our athletes, but I feel like we know Jayden Daniels well enough to know that the Jayden Daniels who we are seeing in this situation, that's not the Jayden Daniels who we know. I would not at all be surprised if there's more to this story that we just don't know yet, but that will make the story make more sense. Strange story, not a fun story, but this is a story that will have zero impact on how Daniels or Washington does in its 2026 season. This is not a story relevant to the on-the-field product of our football team. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. You can reach me via writing a review of the podcast on Apple Podcasts. You can write about whatever you want, and I'll read what you write if you give the podcast a 5-star rating. Email from Dr. Philip C., the MD, on the Washington Commanders last Friday morning, August 7th, announcing having signed unrestricted free agent receiver Stefon Diggs, writes the doctor. Listening to episode 1382, and the litany of Stefon Diggs stuff made me think of you once referring to Deshaun Watson as Bill Cosby. I can't say I'm thrilled about the signing, to be perfectly honest. If Diggs helps us out, great, but I was more excited to see how the receivers we already had would perform. Heck, we seem to forget how far JD5 took us in 2024 with Noah Brown, Crowder, and Zacchaeus. I would argue that we currently have more talent than then, not including Diggs, but I guess it can't hurt to have some more depth. Glad I'm not the one paying him, though. Thank you for the email, Dr. Phillip. I, on episode 1382, conducted a deep dive on Stefon Diggs, including, examining some of his recent off-the-field controversies. How legit these controversies are, we just don't know, but General Manager Adam Peters presumably did due diligence on the controversies and was not bothered enough not to sign Diggs. By the way, the details of the Diggs contract are out. The contract per overthecap.com and spottrack.com is a 1-year, $8 million contract with $7.15 million fully guaranteed at signing. That is a low-money, team-friendly deal given the 2025 season that Diggs had for the New England Patriots. The contract is not a 1-year, $12 million contract. As some have said, the $12 million number clearly came from Diggs' agent and comes from the contract being worth up to $12 million. But as is always the case, the truth about an NFL contract is different than the initial reporting on the contract, because the initial reporting on the contract comes from the player's agent. See the contract extension for Washington receiver Terry McLaurin last August. Hey, if you enjoyed this podcast, make sure that you check out the BGO Blind Pig podcast, which is the official podcast of BGObsession.com, a terrific Washington Commanders forum anyone can join. And BGO Blind Pig essentially is the forum in podcast form, a roundtable discussion about the Washington Commanders. It's like you and a bunch of your buddies who are Washington fans are hanging out and talking about the team. The conversation is smart and fun and respectful. You can find the BGO Blind Pig podcast on YouTube and on any major podcast provider. Now it's a great time of year to check out the BGO Blind Pig podcast, given that 2026 Washington Commanders training camp is ongoing. A very good recent episode on the state of the offensive line. Make BGObsession.com the home for your burgundy and gold obsession, and make the BGO Blind Pig podcast part of your Washington Commanders podcast rotation.
If you're like me, you're the kid who savored every last drop of sugary milk at the bottom of your cereal bowl while watching Saturday morning cartoons. Kachava's new flavor, Cinnamon French Toast, gives you a bit of that classic nostalgia. And I love that it's made with real cinnamon bark. It's a comfort flavor, but with benefits and without the sugary drawbacks. There's no artificial colors, flavors, or sweeteners. It's non-GMO, there's no soy, there's no animal products, no gluten, and no preservatives. But Kachava does provide all the nutrition your body craves in one deliciously simple shake with just 2 scoops. So treat yourself to a childhood favorite. Go to Kachava.com and use code SPORTS for 15% off your first order. That's Kachava, Kachava.com with code SPORTS.
The Washington Commanders overall appeared to do very well in their joint practice with the visiting Miami Dolphins this past Wednesday, but the biggest negative for Washington did seem to be the offensive line, and that's understandable given that its best player, left tackle Laremy Tunsil, suffered a torn triceps during practice this past Saturday morning in clearly the most significant development so far at 2026 Washington Commanders training camp. The line also is without the man who is the favorite to be the starting center, Nick Allegretti. He has been out for multiple weeks due to a calf strain, although head coach Dan Quinn during his pre-practice press conference this past Tuesday morning did say that the hope is that Allegretti will be back for practice this Sunday. 2 weeks from this Sunday is the cut down to 53. It is by Sunday, August 30th at 6 p.m. Eastern that each NFL team must have its active roster at no more than 53 players. Washington's projected starting offensive line right now is Brandon Coleman at left tackle, Chris Paul at left guard, Nick Allegretti at center, Samuel Cosmi at right guard, and Josh Conerly Jr. at right tackle. How are we feeling about this offensive line? I am very pleased to welcome back to the Al Galdi podcast someone who understands offensive line and defensive line play very well and who knows the Washington Commanders very well. Mitch Tischler of Monumental Sports Network, co-host of the Beltway football podcast with J.P. Finley. Mitch actually went to the University of Maryland to play football, of having starred as an offensive lineman at Winston Churchill High School in Potomac, Maryland. He blew out an ankle, ended up never playing for the Terrapins, but he knows line play very well. You can follow Mitch on X at Mitch_Tischler, which is spelled Tischler. Hey, Mitch, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, good to talk to you. So if I'd asked you going into 2026 Washington Commanders training camp to rank the most indispensable players on the team, the QB1, Jayden Daniels, of course, would have been number one. Would the LT1, Laremy Tunsil, have been number two?
It probably would have been number two, only because he's the best player at his position on that football team. I mean, you look around the NFL and there's probably 28, 29, 30 other NFL teams that wish they had Laremy Tunsil suiting up every Sunday for them at left tackle. And, you know, Washington fans have been spoiled for years, you know, going way back. But more recently, you had Chris Samuel, you know, then you had Trent Williams, and now Laremy Tunsil. They've had some real stars over there at left tackle. And it's really hard to understate how big of a loss this is for this football team, but it's not something that can't be overcome.
Whatever your projection for wins for Washington in its 2026 regular season was, to what extent is that projection lessened by Laremy Tunsil being expected to be out for at least a significant portion of the regular season?
I don't necessarily lower the win total prediction. I think, to me, the two biggest factors, and obviously Laremy Tunsil will play into the first one, is going to be Jayden Daniels staying healthy, which obviously is the biggest deal. I think when you look across this offensive roster, you have a better offensive roster this year than the team had in 2024. So ostensibly, you hope that you're able to get some sort of similar offensive production there. Combine that with David Blough bringing in the new offense. A lot of the different creativity, motions, different things we're seeing, I think are really going to be incumbent on, are going to help this offense move the football. And the second thing is, and maybe I just went offense is important and defense is important, but the overall play of the defense, because in the 2 years since Dan Quinn has been here, the defense has been downright terrible. And the only reason they won in 24 was that Jayden Daniels was incredible. In 25, the defense was worse than it was in 24, but, you know, not by grand measures there. And Jayden was hurt, and obviously things went down the hill with all the other injuries. So certainly, you know, losing Laremy Tunsil is big. But I think I had them at, I had them at 10-7. I think they still get right around, you know, 8, 9, 10 wins somewhere in there. And, you know, certainly Tunsil hurts, but there's a lot of different mitigating factors that I think will help it out.
I do like that Washington did not hesitate in going with Brandon Coleman as the replacement for Laremy Tunsil as the starting left tackle. The team acted quickly and decisively. Coleman, to me, did an admirable job as the team starting left tackle for much of his 2024 rookie season. You this past Wednesday morning in an X post that included video of the offensive line getting warmed up for the joint practice with the Dolphins wrote, quote, "I believe if, and it's an if, Brandon Coleman can stay healthy, the Commanders will be just fine at LT," end quote. Safe to say that Mitch Tischler endorses Washington going with Brandon Coleman as a starting left tackle in place of Laremy Tunsil.
1,000,000%. Al, you won't find somebody else in the DMV that is higher on Brandon Coleman than I. After that 2024 season, I don't want to put limitations on what the upper end of his ability is as a tackle, but he showed a lot of things that good NFL consistent starting tackles give you. And, I start with the week 3 game against the Bengals. He lined up one-on-one with Trey Hendrickson pretty much that entire game in 2024. And they didn't offer him a whole lot of help. There weren't a lot of chips. There weren't a lot of running backs. And he held that guy in check. Rookie season, PFF had him at having 11 quarterback pressures on the season and giving up 0 sacks. That's a really dang good season for any NFL player. Certainly, there were lows during that season. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he was great across the board. But as a 3rd-round pick coming in, being thrust into a starting role immediately, I thought he showed a lot of good things and showed the basics of what you want as you start building towards being a good NFL tackle.
Dan Quinn, during his pre-practice press conference this past Tuesday morning, was clear that Brandon Coleman is the starting left tackle. Quote, Brandon's the starter at left tackle, end quote. Would you say that Coleman is the guy at left tackle, or would you say that there is an element of, hey, let's see how he does, and if he struggles, we'll acquire someone else?
I think he's the guy. There are some free agent names out there, and there's kind of a reason those free agent names are there. If you bring in, the Deckers of the world, the Cam Robinsons, some of the other guys that are there, you're still going to have to prepare Brandon Coleman to be a starting tackle because those are all guys with long injury histories, guys who have been beaten up over the course of their careers. Certainly high draft picks, really good football players, but will have the same, we'll have a injury worry that you'd have to prepare Brandon Coleman anyway. I think, for Brandon, the biggest thing that I think got him a little bit in the doghouse with the previous offensive coaching staff, both offensive line coach and coordinator, was his inability to stay on the field. You go back to 2024 when he was drafted, missed the opening part of training camp with an injury, started 12 games over the course of that season. Obviously, that was a 20-game season for them. Go to 2025, missed the middle portion of training camp, won that starting left guard job, ultimately got hurt. Chris Paul took over, and now we fast forward to 2026 and he's getting an opportunity for redemption. And we talked to him off the field on Monday, and he talked about going down to Alabama and working out with Laremy Tunsil and Josh Conerly in the offseason. And, mentioned a lot of independent football things that there is to learn from Laremy. And quite frankly, anyone on the offensive line could learn something from Laremy Tunsil with, the elite play that we've seen from him. But what really stuck out to me was Brandon Coleman kind of taking ownership of, the fact that, he is still learning how to take care of his body in an NFL way so that he can be available and be on the field. And he's like, I learned a lot from Laremy down there. But one of the biggest things he said he learned was how much work Laremy puts into keeping his body in shape and getting it ready for a football season, and all the maintenance that he does around practices and workouts and stuff like that. And I think that just shows a level of maturity for Brandon Coleman, and a place where we're seeing BC step up and recognize that, the status quo for himself isn't good enough. And it's time to, it was time this offseason to make some real changes. And I think you're, kind of seeing him do that. And I'm excited for the opportunity for him. Certainly it makes calling an offense a little bit more challenging for David Blough, in that you don't have the kind of set it and forget itness of Laremy Tunsil. But I think he's going to have that. He's going to have that opportunity. And I'm excited to see him take advantage of it.
So my preference for Washington, with Laremy Tunsil suffering the torn triceps, was for the team to take Brandon Coleman from competing with Chris Paul for the starting left guard job and move Coleman back to left tackle. But the notion of moving Josh Conerly Jr. from right tackle to left tackle wasn't crazy, given that the team took him as a left tackle out of the University of Oregon with the number 29 overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft. But moving him to left tackle would have disrupted his development at right tackle and would have created disruption at 2 starting offensive tackle spots instead of just 1. What's your take on keeping Conerly at right tackle?
Yeah, I think, the coaching staff, I like that they, kind of immediately came out with, hey, here's the plan. They didn't waffle with it. They didn't give you, oh, we're going to test it out, see what works wherever it is. I think it's important to be decisive in that manner. And the fact that they are being decisive and, hey, Conerly is our right tackle, I think is important. He came into the NFL last year, was a left tackle all through college. And it takes some development to learn how to play right tackle. I know, a lot of folks think of O-line play as, big guys put their hand in the dirt and hit the guy in front of them. But there's a lot of nuance to each of the positions. And, making a switch from left tackle to right tackle is almost akin to writing with your right hand and then having to learn how to write with your left hand in terms of how you're going about your movement and blocks and all those different things. So I think ultimately, because they have that faith that Brandon Coleman, they have the tape on Brandon Coleman where you've seen the good stuff. I think that you can go ahead and make that move. I think, the fact that they immediately named Brandon Coleman, I think was also important. This coaching staff likes to feign competition often. And there are a lot of spots on the field where there is actual competition. But, you look at center where they're like, oh, Nick Allegretti and Julian Good-Jones. Like, it's not a competition. It's Nick Allegretti's job, and Julian Good-Jones is the other guy. So the fact that they were decisive, they were quick about making their decisions, I think are going to give them the opportunity to see what Brandon Coleman has over on the left side, while also allowing Josh Conerly to continue to grow on the right.
I know that you have concerns about center. You've made that clear on your podcast. You this past Wednesday afternoon in a reply post on X wrote this off the joint practice with the Dolphins, quote, "No center equals no chance. And I've been yelling about it since March. Conerly wasn't as bad as some fans were making it out to be, though he struggled at times, particularly with power rushes. Coleman was good, not great. He showed some great quickness to the edge, but overset at times. Got to get Allegretti back and find a backup that can help this year if needed ASAP." End quote. Did General Manager Adam Peters make a mistake in not acquiring a center of significance this past offseason?
1,000,000%, yes. I had some angst through the offseason with the naming of Allegretti as the starting center, even though he wasn't technically named, whatever you want to say. But the fact that they didn't go out and get some backup pieces in there who had some NFL experience at that position really worried me. And now, we're 1 week into training camp, 10 days into training camp, whatever the time frame is, and you already have Nick Allegretti with an injury, and we're seeing, the fruits of that angst with Julian Good-Jones and Matt Goldman's a 6th-round rookie. He's shown some good stuff, but ultimately no one wants to throw out a 6th-round rookie to start at center, in their first season in the NFL. And, they clearly wanted to make a move because they did take a swing for Tyler Linderbaum when he became available from Baltimore. Ultimately, I'm glad they didn't sign him. I don't think he's going to ultimately be worth the dollars that he signed. But the fact that they didn't then go back that up with another kind of veteran-y body that you could feel comfortable in a pinch putting in there, I think was a mistake. And you look back to the 2025 season, and you had Tyler Biadasz and Michael Dieter in training camp. And Michael Dieter is the exact type of player that you kind of want as that backup center. Not that you want him starting games, but he has NFL experience and has been on the football field before. It's not going to be a brand new kind of experience for him. And then on top of that, you had Nick Allegretti at guard and Julian Good-Jones both at guard, who had that kind of center experience. And you look at this roster, and Nick Allegretti is, if Nick Allegretti counts as having NFL experience at center, he's the only one that's played it there. And that's worrisome to me. That was worrisome to me then, and even more so now as we're dealing with an injury early on in training camp.
So I may be on an island with this opinion, but I would have had no problem with Washington paying what it took to get Tyler Linderbaum. Washington, this past March 9th, what was day one of the legal tampering period in the 2026 offseason, reportedly pursued Linderbaum, but he is a Baltimore Ravens unrestricted free agent, agreed on a mega money contract with the Las Vegas Raiders. To me, if you believe that Linderbaum is an elite center, then pay what it takes to get him. The Raiders, per OverTheCap.com and SpotTrack.com, signed Linderbaum to a 3-year, $81 million contract with $60 million fully guaranteed at signing. That is monster money for a center, no doubt. That is market resetting money for a center. But if he's elite, so what? The salary cap is shooting up. Today's overpay is tomorrow's bargain. If Linderbaum continues to play at a high level, that contract will only look better and better as the cap goes higher and higher.
The counterpoint to that is you look at how much money they paid Deron Payne and John Allen and how that ultimately affected what they were able to do on the defensive side of the football. Those are your homegrown guys. I would much rather pay my homegrown guys than go out and overpay for somebody else's player. And they ended up investing, $200 million in those guys, and it affected the way that they were able to build the rest of the defense. The cap was still going up and all those things were happening. But when you invest elite money, when you invest a ton of money at a non-elite position, a non-typically elite position, it makes it harder to build out kind of the rest of the roster, and it puts a ton of pressure on the front office to draft extremely well to bring in guys that are going to be on those rookie deals. So, listen, I like that they took a swing at it. I like that they took a swing at Alec Pierce, but I also like that they had a ceiling for where they were willing to go with this thing and didn't overextend themselves. You look at the Ravens just signed Ethan Poick a couple weeks ago, who was a starting center in Cleveland. And I look at the Ravens offensive line center position similarly to Washington, where, they're kind of trying to figure out what they're going to do. And they went out and got a guy. Granted, he's coming off injury, so I'm not saying necessarily he's the perfect answer to it, but they brought in another veteran who had starting experience there, who would be able to step in and play, would be able to play there. I would have loved to have seen Washington bring him in when he became available.
Much more with Mitch Tischler in moments, but if you are a Washington Commanders fan and are on Instagram, make sure that you're following WSH on the Daily. The handle is at WSH on the Daily. The content is outstanding. Daily coverage of the Washington Commanders, news, analysis, opinions, great photos and videos all about the team. WSH on the Daily started in 2021 and has more than 47,000 followers. Don't get left behind. Follow WSH on the Daily on Instagram. The handle is at WSH on the Daily, and check out WSH on the Daily's online shop, WSHonthedaily.com. Some terrific gear, t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, hats, excellent materials, modern looks. So for smart, informative, fun, and engaging Washington Commanders content, check out WSH on the Daily on Instagram, and for great merch, visit WSHonthedaily.com. We're talking with Mitch Tischler of Monumental Sports Network, host of the Beltway Football Podcast with JP Finley. Sam Cosmi, he in the 2025 regular season played in just 9 of Washington's 17 games. It was on the reserve/physically unable to perform list from August 26th to October 18th due to a torn right ACL that he suffered in Washington's 45-31 win at the Detroit Lions on January 18th, 2025 in the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. And then Washington this past December 22nd announced having put him on the reserve/injured list due to a concussion that he suffered in the team's 29-18 loss to the Philadelphia Eagles at Northwest Stadium this past December 20th. Cosmi, over his 9 games last regular season, did play well. Overall grade for Pro Football Focus of 76.3. That's good. PFF grades are on a scale of 0 to 100. 60 is average. The reporting from training camp is that Sam Cosmi looks good, that he looks like his old self. Is this true?
I mean, yes. We were talking in the media tent the other day. I think he's getting an all-pro bid this season, and I'm not even saying that with a burgundy and gold shaded lenses. He's looked really good. I think he was really close to that. A lot of times, all-pro is kind of the year after you're great, you get the all-pro nod. Once you get the exposure for being a good player, it doesn't always happen right away. It's usually kind of, especially O-line wise, where there's not definable stats really to point to. And I think that injury really kind of set him back in terms of obviously play last year, coming back from that injury. He looks like a mountain of a man, and he's so strong when he gets his hands on you. I think for me, it's the quickness and it's the lateral quickness that we're seeing from him. His ability to ride players in and out, from that guard position. And ultimately, I think aside from Sam Cosmi being physically back to health, I think having the full offseason with Josh Conerly is going to make a massive difference for that right side of the offensive line. Similarly to how I think the Tunsil injury is going to affect the left side of the line with Brandon Coleman and Chris Paul having to get back on this, or get on the same page and get some more work so that they kind of know what each other are going to be doing.
Jayden Daniels carved up the Dolphins during the joint practice this past Wednesday. How would you describe the training camp that he's having?
He's had a good camp. He's had moments of greatness and moments where he looks a little bit rusty. And I think part of that is the new offense and learning it as it's going. I think you're seeing a couple throws that probably he's not going to make in a game. He's trying to test out what's going to work, what's not going to work in training camp. But the two things that have really stood out is one, the speed with which he's processing on the field. You're seeing him work through his progressions extremely quickly. And then secondly, kind of the decisiveness with which he's delivering the football. And it's been fun to watch, especially since Stefon Diggs joined camp. You're seeing kind of the difference between the veteran savvy that Stefon Diggs has versus a lot of the young receivers, finding the open spaces in zones and shimmying open, might be a 1, 2, 3 foot drift for him, but he's giving the quarterback a path to throw the football. And I think, with Stefon Diggs being out there, you're going to have a little bit of that kind of security blanket trust factor that Jayden Daniels had last year with Zach Ertz. With pre-Stefon Diggs being here, I was concerned when, you have the gotta go get it, teams are going to be able to overload on Terry, and, Jayden wouldn't necessarily have that trust spot. But watching him, make some of those elite throws, some of the deep balls, some of the corner end zone throws, the feathering it over linebackers and in front of safeties, and it just kind of reminds you of how good Jayden is as a quarterback. And I'm really kind of high on him this season and think he's gonna, have a kind of a big reminder to the NFL, like, hey, remember I was the player that had arguably the greatest rookie season of any quarterback in NFL history. Yeah, that guy's still wearing the burgundy and gold and slinging the ball around.
The offense of Washington's new offensive coordinator, David Blough, however you felt about the offense going into training camp, now that you've seen 2+ weeks at camp, do you feel better or worse about the offense?
Chef's kiss, baby. It's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to see it. And as we're going through camp and, we're 2 weeks in, I'm really recognizing kind of how stale the Cliff Kingsbury offense was in comparison. All of the different motions, all the different packages and sets are just so different than what we saw last year. And I love what we're seeing with receivers and tight ends in motion, getting themselves into positions where they're going to be able to be, designed to get themselves into advantageous matchups is a lot of fun to watch. The other day in practice, they were going through some screen passes, pop passes, and just kind of watching the scheme as it's unfolding in front of you. You're recognizing that that he's trying to play with defenders' eyes a lot. There's a lot of false steps from different folks in different places, and kind of typical screen passes are you have your tackle, guard, center, and they're coming out front and getting in front. You're seeing a couple different little motions from both the offensive line and kind of the skill players on the outside to maybe make a safety or a linebacker kind of have to pause for a second and give guys an extra second or two to get around. It's great to be excited about the motion and seeing kind of a lot of the different things. I really like that Jayden has seen to have a concerted effort to throw the football when he's rolling out. Last season, we saw him obviously tuck the ball, I think, far too often. You're seeing him kind of hang in the pocket or hang behind the line of scrimmage and get rid of the ball. And it's great to see all that kind of stuff now in camp, but you're playing against your own defense. Ultimately, it's going to be hard to really get a feel for, how good it looks until they get on the field September 13th against the Eagles.
And we now are less than a month away from that. Mitch, by the way, as we are recording this via Zoom, is wearing a sleeveless gray shirt with the Washington Redskins logo of the proud Native American warrior. Great shirt. Was it already sleeveless, or did you make it sleeveless?
It's very funny. So Monumental Sports used to be Comcast Sportsnet. We were team partners with the Redskins back then. At training camp, I would shoot a mic'd up segment every day during training camp. And when I was shooting it, they would allow me to shoot from the team photographer area, not the media photographer area. And so when I was in the team area, I had to be wearing a logoed shirt. And so I had a couple of these T-shirts that they had given me, and they ultimately became my, dog walking shirts and undershirts and stuff like that. So I have a number of old school Redskins logo shirts running around. If you're in the Bethesda area, there's a good chance at some point you'll see me out walking my dog Carver with a Redskins era logo.
Well, you shot the famous video of the then lead owner of the Redskins, Dan Snyder, walking by the then team president of the Redskins, Bruce Allen, right near the team's locker room after a 47-16 loss at the Dallas Cowboys on December 29th, 2019, concluding the Redskins going 3-13 in the 2019 regular season. And then the next day, Snyder fired Allen. You shot that historical video, right?
There are the couple ones that stand out. Dan and Bruce, Josh Norman, and Taylor Lewan with the bow and arrow fight post game, and the Deshaun Jackson nipple titty twister to Jay Gruden. Those were a couple of my favorites that always kind of stand out when I think about my days shooting.
Those are three classics, but the Dan Bruce video is an all-timer because of the symbolism. The two having become estranged and walking past each other, and then the next day, Dan fired Bruce. The video is just perfect.
That was the most joy I ever had shooting a, innocuous hallway or whatever shot.
That's outstanding. Mitch Tischler of Monumental Sports Network, co-host of the Beltway Football Podcast with JP Finley. Mitch, thank you. All the best.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
All right. Well, Washington very much needs Brandon Coleman to step up. And if you need to step up your wardrobe, like Brandon Coleman needs to step up, check out Quince. Go to quince.com/Galdi. Quince is all about fewer, better pieces. Quince's clothes are made with premium materials built to last and designed to become the ones that you reach for day after day. I've been telling you about my sand dune colored cotton chino drawstring shorts from Quince. Clothes from Quince become your go-to items like a go-to receiver. Quince specializes in everyday staples that work harder, like Quince's ultra-soft organic cotton tees and premium Mongolian cashmere sweaters. They're versatile, timeless, and transition seamlessly from a casual workday to dinner out. If you're still hanging on to the same worn-out basics, Quince makes it easy to upgrade. Quince has premium denim and tailored chinos from just $60 with the kind of perfect fit, structure, and high-quality fabrics you'd expect from a luxury designer brand. Upgrade your everyday. Download the Quince app for app-exclusive offers or go to quince.com/Galdi. Get free shipping on your order and 365-day returns, now available in Canada and the UK too. That's QUINCE.com/Galdi. Free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/Galdi. Well, 2026 Washington Commanders training camp is ongoing. Football season is here. If you would like to grow your business or practice, consider advertising on this podcast. We're offering great deals in honor of the football season. Podcast advertising is very affordable and works. Put the power of the pod to work for you. Get your message out there to thousands of successful people in the Washington, D.C. area. Grow your business or practice. We'd love to have you on board. Email us to see what we can do for you. The email address is the Al Galdi Podcast at yahoo.com. The 2026 Washington Nationals have had a number of players who've demonstrated major improvement, but you could argue that the player who has demonstrated the most improvement is starting pitcher Cade Cavalli. A 7-0 win over the Chicago Cubs at Nationals Park on Thursday to avoid a 3-game sweep and conclude a 4-2 homestand. The Nats in MLB's 2026 regular season now are 60-63 with a run differential of plus 23. The Cubs in this regular season now are 71-51 with a run differential of plus 108. They lead the National League wildcard standing. So the Nats took Cade Cavalli with the number 22 overall pick in the 2020 MLB first-year player draft out of the University of Oklahoma. It has not been until this season that he has become a regular starting pitcher for the Nats at the major league level. His road to this point has been filled with injury and setbacks and underperformance. He was looking like a bust, but Cade Cavalli this season has taken a massive step forward. And Cavalli, in this 7-0 win over the Cubs at Nationals Park on Thursday, was magnificent. 8 scoreless innings, 10 strikeouts versus 2 walks. He gave up just 1 hit, which was a single. He threw 103 pitches, 63 strikes, 40 balls. He did this on the day before his 28th birthday, And he did this against a Cubs team that was number 2 in MLB in runs scored in the 2026 regular season as of games through Wednesday. Cade Cavalli on Thursday shut down an elite offense. He tossed 5 perfect innings until issuing a leadoff 4-pitch walk of Dansby Swanson in the top of the 6th. But Cavalli made a terrific backhanded catch while down on his left knee to complete a 3-6-1 double play for the first 2 outs in the top of the 6th. Cavalli tossed 6 2/3 no-hit innings until giving up a 2-out opposite field single by Michael Busch to left field on a 1-2 pitch in the top of the 7th. It, for a while, was looking like Cade Cavalli just might throw a no-hitter. There have been 3 regular season no-hitters for the Nats since the franchise moved to Washington, D.C. in the 2004-2005 offseason. Jordan Zimmerman in September 2014, Max Scherzer in June 2015, and Max Scherzer in October 2015. But Cade Cavalli, what a performance on Thursday. Cavalli now in this regular season, 26 games, all starts, ERA of 3.36, whip of 1.24, strikeouts per 9 innings of 9.94, 151 strikeouts. So he has a shot at a 200 strikeout regular season. We, during Nats manager Blake Butera's postgame press conference on Thursday evening, had this exchange between my co-host on the Nats Chat podcast, Nats insider Mark Zuckerman of NatsJournal.com, and Butera, and then you'll hear a follow-up exchange.
When could you tell that Cade wasn't just on?
I thought that just coming out of the gates, I thought how efficient he was through those first 3 innings. I was like, man, if he keeps this up, we're gonna have a decision to make late in the game here. I wasn't really thinking about the no-hitter in the 3rd, but I was looking at the pitch count as he's going into the 4th inning. And I'm like, man, this is complete game type of pitching, the way he was going and how quickly he was getting some outs, and obviously how good the stuff was looking. Got a little nervous there in the 6th when he walked the leadoff hitter and then went 2-0, and that was a huge double play ball right there. A nice play by him and CJ and Avi.
When you think about kind of the stretches he's had this season, there have been some where the strikeouts are really high, but it's not super efficient. Other times where he's been real efficient, but the strikeouts aren't super high. Why do you think it's all coming together now?
Yeah, look, I think he's, like I said, I think where he was to start the year with how good the stuff was, how high our expectations were for Cade, to be able to remain healthy all year and be able to make this many starts and learn from each start and make adjustments in between outings. When you're able to do that, he's just, picking up more and more experience from each previous outing, and also the time in between that he has with his teammates, other pitchers on the team, and our coaching staff. The job that whole group has done together to allow him to keep fine-tuning his craft, I think what we saw today is a great example of that.
How gratifying is it when you get a payoff like today?
It's awesome. I told him that was unbelievable. It was fun to watch, and I'd enjoy just sitting back watching him pitch, and Lincoln giving him the advice before had a lot to do with it, but it was awesome.
Well, this is Cade Cavalli's age 27 season. He's under team control through the 2029 season, so it's not like the Nats have to worry about this guy contractually right now, and he is rolling. Consider his month-by-month ERAs for this regular season. April, 3.67, May, 3.41, June, 3.82, July, 3.08, August, 2.25. Just tremendous consistency. The Nats in this 7-0 win over the Cubs at Nationals Park on Thursday used just one relief pitcher, who was Clayton Beeter. He tossed a perfect top of the 9th. So outstanding pitching for the Nats in this game, and very good offense for the Nats in this game. 7 runs, 10 hits, which were a home run, a double, and 8 singles, just 1 walk, but 3 for 8 with runners in scoring position. I mentioned that the Cubs came into this game number 2 in MLB in runs scored for the 2026 regular season. Well, number 1 was the Nats, and the Nats do remain number 1 in MLB in runs scored in this regular season. Even with the Nats offense having cooled off for a while, you're still looking at the number 1 team in MLB in terms of runs scored. That total now is at 662. The Nats got to Cubs starting pitcher and former Baltimore Orioles starting pitcher Kevin Gausman. The O's took Kevin Gausman with the number 4 overall pick in the 2012 MLB first-year player draft out of LSU. Gausman on Thursday allowed 6 runs in 4 2/3 innings. Did have 7 strikeouts versus 1 walk, but the Nats ultimately had their way with Kevin Gausman. The Nats home run was by Abimelec Ortiz. He is the Nats starting first baseman and number 2 batter. Went 2 for 4 with a 3-run homer and a single. Ortiz in the Nats 5-run 5th. Had a 2-out first pitch, 3-run homer to right center field for a 5-0 Nats lead. The homer went a projected 414 feet per Statcast. This was off Ortiz in the Nats 12-6 loss to the Cubs at Nationals Park on Wednesday evening, coming into the game to pinch hit and play first base. He went 1 for 2 with a solo homer, and what a homer it was. Ortiz in the Nats 1-run 6th had a pinch 1-out solo homer to the upper deck in right field to cut the Nats deficit to 9-5. That homer went a projected 407 feet per Statcast. How do you like Abimelec Ortiz? The Nats got this guy from the Texas Rangers as part of the 5-prospect package for starting pitcher Mackenzie Gore via trade this past January 22nd. The Nats on July 12th announced having recalled Ortiz from AAA Rochester. He and the Nats 5-3 loss to the New York Yankees at Nationals Park on July 12th as the Nats starting DH and number 3 batter went 1 for 2 with a double in his MLB regular season debut. But the Nats that evening announced having optioned Ortiz back to AAA Rochester. The Nats on August 3rd, what was 2026 MLB trade deadline day, announced having recalled Ortiz from AAA Rochester. And he, for the Nats at the major league level in this regular season, has been terrific. 31 plate appearances, OPS of 1,122. Dylan Cruz, he is the Nats starting right fielder and number 3 batter, went 2 for 4 with an RBI double, a single, and a stolen base. Cruz in the Nats 1-run 4th had a 1-out RBI double to the left center field gap for a 1-0 Nats lead. His OPS at the major league level in this regular season now is at 662. And Dalen Lyle, he is the Nats starting left fielder and number 4 batter, went 2 for 4 with an RBI single and another single. His OPS for this regular season now is at 716. Next up for the Nats is a 9-game road trip beginning with a 3-game series at the New York Mets. The Nats have listed the following starting pitchers as probables for the series. Game 1 Friday night at 7:10, Andrew Alvarez. Game 2 Saturday afternoon at 4:10. The Nats starting pitcher is to be announced. Game 3 Sunday afternoon at 1:40, Jake Irvin. And that'll do it for you and me for now, but there's more to come. Monday's show, episode 1389. We'll have a lot for you on the Washington Commanders as they have their 2026 preseason opener on Friday night. Washington versus the Miami Dolphins at Northwest Stadium Friday night at 7, and Washington has a training camp practice on Sunday. Also on Monday's show, I'll talk Washington Nationals and Baltimore Orioles. The Nats this weekend have a 3-game series at the New York Mets. The O's this weekend have the first 3 games of a 4-game series at the Tampa Bay Rays. Have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you on Monday.
Just want to give you the opportunity to comment on the Jayden Daniels situation.
I'd be disappointed if that wasn't the first question. I commented a week ago on that, and so that's the comment that I had, and we're moving forward.